So here we are in India,
Oh,
Auroville, with my friend Didier.
yes.
Didier, you have in Auroville a non-dual meetup group. Is
Yes.
that right?
It's a meetup group. It's organized by a kind of specific tool from the web that's called Meetup, and
Hmm.
it's very simple to use and quite handy. That just makes everybody know exactly what is the theme of the meeting, and what is actually the place and the time, and that's all. It's not about blogging. It's not about chatting. There's some exchange
Hmm.
through that, but it's more like a mailing list, and everybody gets it, and we meet. That's the
Okay.
idea.
And there are people going to these talks. What are they looking for?
That's an interesting question because we haven't found out yet. But clearly, I mean, we have about 15 to 20 quite active members, plus many more registered.
Yeah.
There's a kind of filtering process actually. So already the people coming are not looking for some therapy or some life improvement or some specific topic linked to more spiritual themes.
Hmm.
And so it's there's this filtering brings a lot of focus into our conversations,
Okay.
and a lot of common vocabulary
Hmm.
and concepts which we don't have to explain from scratch, and start
Okay.
the beginning of everything. So we immediately enter into a space that's agreed together, and we explore that space, and we look at the words, at the concepts, and we start actually. I'm talking about a toolbox often, like having tools, and we take one tool and what is it, what's the purpose, and does everybody sees what it means,
Yeah.
because it's about seeing and not and actually doing, and not just adding concept after concept and having a nice theory about the whole story.
Okay.
And it works because there's a lot of insights, deep insights coming all over the place, and people come back because they get shaken, and they have some intuition that there's something much that the words are pointing at something,
Yeah.
and they can see it, they have glimpses of it, and they like it. So we're just there to facilitate that.
Okay, and if people would not participate in the group, ask you for what are you pointing at during these talks? Can you explain?
It's so simple to explain, and at the same time it becomes so mysterious immediately. So we are pointing at our essence, which is always available, already here, and 100% visible. There's nothing hidden in the whole story, and it's just not recognized. It's not just valued at the proper place, at the proper value, and it's somehow the simplicity that makes it maybe totally hidden.
Yeah.
And we can talk about presence, we can talk about silence, we can talk about, there's a different words that are pointing at that they're not describing as such, but they are just giving the direction, and it's just the case in every case. That's the only thing that exists, and it's somehow it's like always coming back. Okay, the concept are always trying to get away from there and
Yeah.
try to find some nice story, some very clever story.
Mhm.
And we are like totally dumb, Anamika and myself, we're just going back. No, but we don't go there. Let's refocus to the
So it's
basics.
getting rid
Back
of
to the basics.
concepts instead
Yeah,
of
yeah.
creating new
Exactly.
stories. Yeah.
But it's not easy, but we need the concept also for that. It's not that we are just saying, oh, there's nothing to say, nothing to do, let's keep silent. It's rarely silent, actually. There's some silence, natural silence, but it's not the point, because the silence we're talking about is much beyond noise and silence. It's the background of being.
Yeah. What's constantly there?
Yeah.
What's constantly been overlooked?
Yeah. Very much.
But I was surprised that when we did a talk, that people came all the way from Chennai
Yeah.
to to Auroville
Yes.
for this.
Yeah.
So you think more people are open to the message?
It's interesting that to see that in India, though the Advaita part has been there, very embedded into the culture and into the. Everybody knows about the word. It's not like in Europe where you have to explain what it is. Still, I don't see so many people really understanding what it means.
No.
It's more like a label on part of their whole Hinduism teaching, and they know where to put it, they know more or less what it means, but it's just like a nice label. And I didn't meet so many people really with a quite correct understanding of what was the word pointing at.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't have too many. I mean, we have few people coming from Chennai, but we had many more requests to join the group.
Okay.
And with Anamika, when we see that it's just kind of it would become like a book discussion, or we just drop the idea. We just say we nicely talk to them, and we just say. We can meet, we can be in touch by email, and when you feel you're ready, you can join at that point.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the idea, and actually, India is not really specifically inclined to that. I think it's getting even on the other direction, because in Europe we have been through a lot of stuff, and now there is a glimpse of seeing beyond the appearances. Yeah. And here in India, it's much more into, okay, now I want to live the life that they have been living in the US, in Europe, and forget about all these stories actually.
And then in Tiruvannamalai, for instance, I see a total mixture of Ramana Maharshi with Hinduism. It's as if they think he's some kind of a guru, but they actually have no idea what the guy was talking about.
Yeah. No, the message is not as important. They look at the figure and they just decide this guy looks so special. He must be somewhere, in the pantheon of the big gods, and they look at really on the appearances. If the guy has some miracle at his, in his history, then he becomes immediately somebody you should really look at, and that's really not the proper angle to start with non-duality, I guess.
No.
Not at all. But still, I mean, when a guys come from Chennai and or from Pondy or from all around outside Auroville, there is a real openness, which I really feel that's a big plus.
Yeah.
The Indian mind has this capacity of not referring too much, because they have been through so many aspects and teachings, and it's a lot of confusions, but at the same time it's a lot of flexibility. And then they listen, and I remember one of the guy who at your session, when he was who was asking more the question. I mean, he was the one asking so many questions. You remember? And actually, when I met him first, it was not so long ago. I spoke about that. I explained in very simple words what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "Give me some time." And he closed his eye, and he was for like maybe 10 minutes. Then he opened. Yeah, I see what you mean. So I had it was like, oh, because he's not thinking about it. He's looking. He sees in his own reality if it makes sense to him. And that's a lot of flexibility, and I find sometimes it's really interesting.
Nice. If you explain, Didier, in your own words, what's non-duality?
In my own words, it will be difficult because it's been explained so many times by so many people. I don't know which one are my own words and what does it mean. Having your own word, you always actually use the material that has been given to you in the past, actually. So it's just a recycling of the concepts and the way to explain. And I think it's important to talk about about non-dual instead of talking about oneness. I really don't like entering that zone of oneness, of this separate individual merging with the whole, which is another illusion actually, because if it doesn't exist in the first place, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so true.
So I tend to, when people are talking, it's about oneness, I say, no, it's not about oneness at all. It's about not two.
Yeah.
And not two means that there is what happens right now, and we cannot extract something that I would call a separate individual. I would call me, or I would call Paul, or so it's just a single event, very complex and totally mysterious.
Yeah.
But at the same time, where do I put the boundary, which would define what is me and what is not me, and what is inside and what is outside? It would be impossible actually.
Yeah.
So it's much. I really like this not two concept instead of starting from the point of view of merging with the whole and all that, because that doesn't make any sense. It's starting with on the wrong foot actually.
Yeah, we are already this one, so where to go?
Yeah. And that's the most complex message to give, that when you have this group of people around you, and then there really can be a lot of confusion about the idea of getting somewhere and changing something, and because it doesn't feel right now as it is. So there is a change to be given, and they look at what we say, Anamika and myself within the group, and they say, "Wow, that's so far out." But it's the opposite. It's not far out there. It's very simple here, actually.
Yeah, but for an individual, it's such a tough message because there's nothing to do.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. There's nothing to do. There is nothing one can do for that. Sure. There's a lot of doing happening in any case.
Yeah.
I'm part of a very active organism. So through my business, through my family, my work, it's all very active actually.
Yeah.
And my search was active as well. And only when I realized that it was on kind of autopilot, that I was not doing it actually, that things started to get much more clear and very quickly. But it didn't mean that there was nothing to clarify.
Yeah.
You know, the concept of Ramana Maharshi using a thorn to remove a thorn, which is the illusion. I mean, the hallucination is removed by some concept saying, well, it's not actually the way it looks. I mean, you know exactly the way you present it, and then the letting go of both of them is quite important. But that doesn't mean that there's no second thorn. There's some action happening. There's some clarification at some level.
Yeah. And no one's doing it.
And we have this. No one is doing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have on the advanced seekers, you have a lot of misconception about that, saying, well, I know there's nothing to do, so I'm not doing anything, but again, it's even worse, because it's somebody not doing something.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's still a dead end somehow.
Yeah. And how did it, when it became more clear within that body-mind system we call Didier, how did it affect your daily life? Because you run a business, you've got many employees, you travel the world. What changed?
There's a paradox there. I mean, because it's obviously it became extremely different in the perspective, but at the same time the programming was going on with the same attributes and patterns.
Yeah.
But at the same time, over time, there has been a lot of clearing up of tensions and a lot of relaxation at many levels. For example, one thing that I could do immediately, very quickly, is to talk in front of an audience, and because it didn't matter anymore. Actually, I was just talking to myself. I mean, not even talking to myself. It was just talking happening, and there was no more stress or feeling that I should perform properly or I should be adequate, or this whole part got totally dissolved. And so the self-concern was not there anymore. So obviously at some level it became much better. For the business, it's a fantastic extremely good tool actually, because when you meet a new client, if through your action he doesn't see that there is a lot of self-concern that I want to get this answer and this contract or whatever, if there is a lot of emptiness in the relation and relaxation and joy, because that's part also of it. The guy he's not trying to sell me anything because he looks so detached. It's not that I'm detached. It's the concern doesn't arise anymore, and at the same time, I'm really getting the contract. I'm not playing the game. I'm going for it. So there's these two aspects at the same time, but then you kind of become much more efficient in business in some ways.
Yeah.
So it's a great, would be somehow a great plus.
Yeah, because I think when there's a lot of identification and it's so personalized, then I see it in business all the time. People have strategies all over, and they manipulate themselves, each other. And I think for businessmen, this is such a relief when that falls away.
Yeah, it becomes a game, but it's not that, using the word game, I'm really quite reluctant, because it seems that, it doesn't matter anymore. Yes, in the absolute way, it doesn't matter, for sure. That's the bottom line. But in a relative way, part of the story, I'm going for it. I'm going to buy them, I'm going to eat them, and I'm going to get the contract if I have a competition with competitors around, because it's part of the game is to win the game also. So it's apparently I'm going for it, but at the same time there is such a relaxation that it's very often felt by the client.
Is the change also when you don't get the deal? There's no suffering afterwards.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
No, what a relief.
Yeah.
So now you're going to Frankfurt.
Correct.
And if nothing will succeed by getting new deals, you fly back, and that's what happens.
And life goes on. Surfing the wave, whatever it is.
And for how long have you been living here in Auroville?
I've been almost exactly 20 years here, actually. Yeah, I arrived in '94, and it's a great gift. The project of Auroville, in one way. I came from France, from a kind of rat race with a lot of pressure from the work and from society, environment, family, whatever, and somehow the whole thing collapsed here. And
well, how many years ago?
Well, when I arrived in '94, for 2-3 years, I just stopped doing my usual job, and I did some other things, but really at a low profile. And there was this gift of Auroville to give space and time to more central questions in life, and it's funny because I read that from Jiddu Krishnamurti, that he had, when people were asking him what shall I do, and he was very reluctant to give some advice. He's just but he said, if I can give you an advice, is just get some free time out of the rat race. It's a gift that you have to give to yourself, and maybe not, something will happen from there. But he was really giving a lot of value to that special time, and I think that changed a lot in my whole life because of that. And destiny, obviously, but it's not. It's not. I don't think in Europe. It's not because of Europe, or there's no special place. There's no holy place. It's not a holier. There's no special vibration here in Auroville, which would be, or even matrimony. Or it's not like I'm really so connected to the place. I love being here. It's really the place I really like to be, and all that. But what is more required is not a special place. It's special. Space, in time and physical space, actually, and then maybe something can happen.
Because we most probably are so conditioned in the West to just work and go with the rat race. And most people first need a burnout to ask themselves, why am I doing this?
Well, it's exactly what happened in my own story. I've been 12 years about 24/7 sound engineer in studios and touring and not sleeping and going jumping from job to job, and I burn out, and it's a great it's a great event, a burnout.
Yeah, yeah. If you look at the Indian culture, do you think, if we generalize it, that there's less identification people have than in the West?
Yes, there will be less identification. You know, being part of the country for so many years brought some insight into the way they communicate, and it's interesting because everybody from the bottom line, you know, from the farmer to the top executive, or I'm quite in touch with Bollywood, with the top actors and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
They are all have the feeling they're playing a game.
Okay.
And they, as soon as you enter the zone of friendship and there's some closeness very quickly building up. There's a mask goes down. Okay, oh, I'm this big shot, but actually I'm just a normal guy, and I'm actually same as you.
Yeah.
Because they have this embedded understanding of it's just a game actually at that level.
Yeah.
And that's much easier in the communication, and in you know, you sit next to a guy in the plane, and you start talking about the meaning of life in 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's not because he's a top shot executive that he's not going to answer to you, or even the opposite also is true.
Yeah.
And that's, I think there's much less identification.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you, DJ.
My good pleasure, Paul. It was a pleasure to see you.
The
here,
girls
so.
behind, they also want to be part of the movie.